Hey, everybody. Welcome to Relish This, the nonprofit marketing podcast. I'm your host, Stu Swineford, co-founder at Relish Studio. We're a digital marketing agency geared toward helping Colorado nonprofits thrive. My guest today is Margaret Watts Romney, and she is a great public speaking coach who is the founder of the MasterSpeaker Lab. And she ran through some really fun and interesting things, mindset shifts to help you overcome the fear and the anxiety associated with public speaking. And I hope it's really valuable for you. And here we go. I had the pleasure of meeting with you, Margaret, a couple weeks ago, and we had a really great conversation, and that led into this idea of getting experts together. And I'd like for you to be our expert today, and specifically around three things that three rules, kind of fundamental rules of public speaking that people should be aware of as they get out in front of an audience. And so Margaret, I'll let you kind of take it from here. I'd love to have you tell a little bit of your story, and then we can continue our conversation.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to talk with you. I just remember in our first conversation, Stu, we were on the same page about storytelling, how important it is and how it's so powerful and really on like a deep human brain emotional need. We have such a huge response to it. So being aware of what's your story, how are you incorporating people, where are you taking them? Yeah, awesome. Well, so I prepared just like a few little slides, mostly to help me remember where I'm going. So if you're listening to this on a podcast, I'm sure, Stu, you can have a PDF of these or something. And also I'll just be talking through them enough so everything will work out great. And
that sounds awesome.
Okay. So I was thinking lately about how, I don't know, it's kind of back to school, right? Like here we are talking, it's the day after Labor Day. School is weird this year across the board, but it still is. And I'm not in school. I don't have kids in school, but there's such a foundational in my bones feeling of like, this is a new start. It's a new beginning. And so what I want to talk about today is just a few like fundamentals, a few foundational principles that I like thinking about and talking about and working with my clients on with public speaking. First one is my motto: speakership is leadership. And what I mean by this is when you're speaking, you're leading people, whether you want to or not, whether you're ready to or not. If you get up on the stage or if you start a conversation and you're full of insecurity and your body language is all hunched and closed together and you really don't want to be there, you have just led your audience to a place, whether you were ready to or not. You just led them somewhere. Likewise, when you're speaking and you feel that sense of confidence and you're really clear on your message, you really have a vision in your mind of the gift you want to give them or the transition you want to move through with them, all of that clarity, all of that deep knowledge and confidence, your audience feels that as well. So I like to say speakership is leadership, whether you're ready to or not.
Love it. That's awesome.
Nice. Yep. And the second thing I want to talk about is that the audience is the hero. I think that when we're up on stage, we can so get caught up in our own head. I've done that so many times. Like, oh, they're thinking, what do they think of my stuttering? What if I said the word too much? Oh my gosh, my black top doesn't really match the same black as my pants. And the truth is, the audience is in it for them. And also you have an opportunity to think of the audience as a hero. You have an opportunity to take them to a new place. You have an idea, you have a message, and your job as the speaker, your job as the leader of that room is to help empower that audience to a new place. Your ideas, your message are kind of a superpower that you have to give them. and that they can take into their lives, into their world afterwards and change it somehow. I know, Stu, this is something you think about and talk about a lot in your work as well.
Yeah, we talk about positioning. One should position themselves in a marketing standpoint as the guide, and your client or your potential customer, they're the hero in this journey. And similarly, for us, as we're being the guide from a marketing standpoint with our clients, we try and get them to wrap their heads around the same idea, where their product or their service is actually they become the guide in that story with their own audience, and really allowing the audience to leverage that ego that we all have, that wants to be the star of the story, and just bring everything back, and you become this person that's helping that hero cross this chasm of anxiety or information gap or some sort of product that they need. Like, that gets them across this giant scary thing to a future state of excellence.
Yeah, I know. And one thing I know you and I have in common is a focus or a soft spot for nonprofits. And I find that with nonprofit work, it can be, the nonprofit is doing heroic work. And there's a tricky thing where the nonprofit still, as they're speaking to their audience, as they're speaking to their donors or their stakeholders, somehow they need to shift their rhetoric so they are empowering the people they're speaking to. So they're inviting people to join them in being heroes. Somehow it's not just, well, give us money and support to do the great things we're doing. Like, no, what's in it for them? What are you empowering everyone else to do by joining with your mission? It's kind of it's a tricky
absolutely. Yeah, it's interesting. Nonprofits have the added challenges that they usually have more than a single audience, and so trying to figure out how to maneuver all of those stories sort of in one space in order to get all of those different audiences and persona types engaged is a real challenge. One of the things that we talk about with nonprofits, particularly in the fundraising pieces, if there's a way to tie that to a really strong emotion and an experience as opposed to a value like a price tag. And this goes into a lot of nonprofits are having online auctions and things like that at this stage of the game, and really trying to come up with items to be fundraising on that are very experiential oriented, and particularly around children, in terms of if you can get people to think about how cool this would be to get my kid to do X, Y, and Z, they're willing to donate or spend way more on an auction item that has that kind of emotional punch than just a picnic set or whatever.
Yeah, that's brilliant. That's a great topic. I love that idea of getting people more involved. And that's another powerful part of speaking and portraying your message. It sounds like we both touch on with really, how do you incorporate more senses? How do you incorporate more? It's not just a brain thing with a number, but it's also the emotion. It's also the experience. Mm-hmm. And how do you make those messages so much richer by incorporating more parts of the human experience, more parts of the brain? That's great. I love that. Nice. And so just keeping in mind that the audience is the hero and not ourselves, even though we kind of feel like all the attention is on us. People in the audience still are thinking about themselves. It's our job as a speaker to really walk that person to the unknown world, walk them from where they are right now into an unknown and special world. Okay, my last idea of my 3 that I wanted to talk about today is whatever is going on, there are sensations that happen in your body before you speak and when you're speaking. And lots of times people call this nerves. They call it like they just hate that feeling. I have a little story to tell about this. So there's a speaker, Laura Hockenberry, who was speaking at TEDx Boulder a few years ago, and she had never given a talk in public before. And here she was, the night of TEDx Boulder, standing on the Mackey Theater. Actually, she and I were backstage. She was about to go on and speak to a sold-out crowd of 2,200 people. And she was so ready. She was so prepared. We'd been in speaker workshops for months. She loved this topic, the message she was going to share. And I walked backstage and I saw her, and her face was flushed pink. And she was kind of breathing a little bit differently. And she's kind of moving around. And I was like, Laura, how are you? What's going on? And she's like, oh, I'm great. My body's just getting ready to be awesome. And that is exactly it. Her body was going through this huge stage, this huge shift, about to go do this big thing she'd never done before. And she could feel the heart palpitations. She could feel the interesting sensations in her stomach. She could feel like her brain feeling. Sometimes people feel fuzzy, sometimes they're clear. And she just named them as something else. She didn't say, I am freaked out. She didn't say, I'm nervous. She said, my body is getting ready to be awesome. And that is what happens. Whatever you're going to go do, whenever you go speak in a high stakes situation, there will be sensations. Your body does have to go to a more elevated state. And you have a chance and a choice for how you're going to interpret those sensations. There's a story, Simon Sinek was trying to wrap his head around this concept, and he went and interviewed a bunch of Olympic athletes right before they performed. And everyone, he said, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? How are you feeling? And to one, they all said, I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm excited. And they had trained themselves to interpret those same sensations as excitement.
Well, it's cool to spin that as a positive versus a negative. And I think just using that language is so powerful. It reminds me of the first podcast I was on, and I was out in San Diego visiting a friend. And these guys that I knew had a podcast, and they invited me on the show while I was out there. And I went and sat with them, and it wasn't high stakes or anything. It was just the first time I'd done it. So I was, nervous and didn't really know what to expect. And it was a completely casual, calm conversation. And, they were stand-up dudes, and it wasn't high pressure. And I broke out in like a flop sweat, and I was like shivering. And at one point during the thing, they're like, are you cold? Do you need a jacket or something? I'm like, no, just, I'm all good. But I think if I'd had that ability or that insight to just flip it from this negative that I was experiencing to a positive emotion or a positive feeling, that it might have just passed instead of, kind of dominated my thoughts.
Yeah, exactly. It can be overwhelming. And so that's a little bit of a help beforehand. If you know beforehand, this is what's going to happen. My body is going to go through these changes. Okay. What am I going to do with that? And just a note that you and I don't have very long here on our conversation to go into all this. And so if people are wanting more, let's see. Next week, I have an open office hours every single Tuesday at 3:00. It's free. And we've got some more time to dive into these. And so next week at Tuesday at 3, I'm going through my 3-2-1 prep system for if you had known, Stu, like you could feel it before that podcast started, like, okay, here it comes. How I've got some like rituals and, that sounds more religious than I meant it to. I've got some patterns to a little system, a warm-up regimen to kind of help. All right, this is what's going on. Get our nerves under control and move forward like that. So there's information.
I hope that vagus nerve exercise that you shared in one of your very helpful what would you call those webinars, I guess, is in there because That's
Yeah.
super helpful. It's pretty cool.
That's great. Yeah, there's a little bit of vagus nerve stuff in there. I think you're talking, I think you jumped into one of my mini courses on, I think it was was it mindset?
It was mindset, yeah.
Yeah, that was, there, it touches on that too. There's so much here. That's one thing that I've realized lately, especially post-COVID, like I've got so many ideas to share with people, just little nuggets here and there that are bite-sized that you can take and chew on and incorporate in your own life, in your own speaking. So I've been doing these open office hours and making little mini courses so that people can really devise their own plan. What do I need with my speaking right now? Oh, I need to tell a story. Oh, I need a little bit about mindset. Oh, I need to connect with my audience.
Yeah, that's great.
We're all there. Yeah, excellent. So those are some ideas.
The things that I love about what you're doing in terms of these mini courses, and I would encourage everyone out there to go and check them out. And where can they find those, Margaret?
So my website is MasterSpeakerLab.com, and that's where you can find all of the mini courses and other information there.
So I used to be a Telemark skier. I've switched to AT as I've aged a little bit, but I used to be able to ski with some really hotshot skiers, and they would give me tips. And at some point in time, you would have so many different things that you were supposed to be thinking about at any given time that would get overwhelming. But once I realized exactly what was going on, it was so powerful to have all of these little arrows in your quiver that you could go to and focus and drill on just one of those things for, maybe half a day or even a couple of runs. Just think about one thing, and then you would get that, and it would be back here in the back of your mind, and it would become second nature. And so it would automatically kind of come up as you were drilling something else. And so it's really cool to have all these little bitty like nuggets of things that you can just notice that they're happening. I think, that's the first step of anything, is just paying attention and recognizing the sensation, like, oh, I'm doing that thing again. And, not chastise yourself for doing it, but congratulate yourself for noticing. And then you can actually pull back and not do that for some period of time until you recognize that you're doing it again. But the duration in between those lapses starts to expand, right? Like, at one point it's like, oh, I find myself doing the same activity every 30 minutes, and then it's an hour, and then it's a day. And that's just how we get better, is just, taking the time to get these skills that, you are so awesome to provide for us in terms of all these little tricks. But it's really powerful stuff.
Yeah, you've totally seen the vision of it, because what I see with speaking is it's such a long-term skill. Anything that we're doing that's, our body and our mind, you can't be transformed in a 2-day boot camp. It takes time. And so, your background was skiing, my background was in music. And you need to get the repetitions. You need to focus on one little idea and incorporate that into what you're doing. And okay, and now what am I ready for next? So I'm so glad you see the vision of that. I'm just so pleased.
Yeah. Well, it's like, I think Bruce Lee said, to become a master in karate or kung fu or whatever he was a master in, you don't want to learn 10,000 kicks. You don't want to practice 10,000 kicks. You want to practice one kick 10,000 times or something like that. I may be getting that a little bit wrong, but I think that it's right. You learn to play that perfect C note, and once you have that dialed, then you move on to another note, and then you're going to screw the C note up again. But you have this base that you can continue to build on, and it's pretty cool.
Yeah, exactly. There's a book that's really popular right now called Atomic Habits. And there's a quote in there that I like a lot. It says, "We don't rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the level of our systems." And so what system do you have in place? So so I have membership groups and mastermind groups that we're the system. Let's be the system for each other and keep supporting each other to keep going, to keep being aware of your speaking, keep looking at how can you serve your audience better, and keep developing and growing.
That's great. Tell us your URL one more time, and I really appreciate you being on the show.
You bet. So I'm at MasterSpeakerLab.com.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again for hopping on a call today, and I'm going to share this out, and this is great stuff.
Beautiful. Me too. Thank you so much, Stu.
All right, there you have it. Another episode of Relish This, the nonprofit marketing podcast. If you want to continue the conversation and see how we can unearth some gold for your organization, head over to relishstudio.com/podcast to sign up to be a guest on the show. That's it for this week. Thanks for listening. We'll be back soon with another episode of Relish This.